Good afternoon or morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well today. This is Kent Philippi. I'm the Research Vice President for Research and Student Success at AACC. We welcome you to this webinar. We're going to be talking about the voluntary framework of accountability and transitioning to a partnership with a post-secondary data partnership. I'm happy to have with me today Mandy Bailey and Rachel Rush Marlowe. Mandy, you want to introduce yourself briefly?
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. My name is Mandy Bailey. I am the account manager for the Post-Secondary Partnership with the National Student Clearinghouse. So my role is to help institutions who work with the PDP, with the clearinghouse, and to support you in all of your needs from joining the PDP to, helping with your data submission process and all of your needs in between. So happy to be here. Thanks, Kent.
Great. Thank you, Mandy. And Rachel?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Rush Marlowe. I'm the founder and executive director of Research Ed. We are an education policy research nonprofit. And in this project, we're working with AACC as well as the National Student Clearinghouse to help facilitate the transition from the VFA to the PDP. So similar to Mandy, we are here to support everything A to Z with your PDP transition, making sure that you have a seamless experience getting your data files in, also helping you think about how to leverage that data and use it for your goals on campus, and thinking about how you can get at some of those same analyses and insights that you were looking at with the VFA, and as well as some things that are new to the PDP that we think will be really beneficial and supportive for your institutions as well. Great to meet you all.
Thank you, Rachel. So for our presentation today, what we ask you to do, if you have questions or thoughts or comments along the way, please put them send them to us, and we'll answer them as we get along. If they're urgent ones, we'll try and answer them right away, but we're trying to leave some time at the end of this meeting as well for some Q&A as well, to have some conversation to help you go through this. So feel free to either put them in now or wait till the end to put those questions or comments in. So what we're going to do today really is talk a little bit about a brief history of the VFA, just kind of get level set where we're at, where we've done, what we've accomplished so far. Then talk a little bit about transitioning to the new approach for the VFA, which will include introducing the PDP and how we're going to work with that. Talk a little bit about what the participation will look like for 2025, including the process to participate and some of the technical supports that we're going to be making available to you, as Rachel and Mandy mentioned earlier. And then some time at the end for questions and answers, Q&A. So really taking a step backwards on the VFA, we were first developed really to try and get a sense of what are the right metrics for community colleges? How do we measure what is meaningful metrics for community colleges? And this really came out of the real drive in the early 2000s towards better accountability for higher education. And community colleges really didn't want to look at things the same way they've always been looked at. So we wanted to get better measures, the more appropriate measure all of the missions of community colleges and better metrics for that. As part of that, we wanted to not just create the metrics that were for accountability, external accountability, but also internal accountability, internal institutional improvement. So really the rationale behind that was really to develop those sorts of concepts. Fundamentally, reading from the original principles of the VFA is built on the principle that information must be valuable, relatively easy to collect and share, and useful for helping community colleges achieve their own goals. That was really what drove us for creating the metrics in the first place. As I mentioned, it was really to focus on the missions of community colleges and get the metrics that are right for them, but also understanding the populations being served and the students being done with that. So what we did, we created these metrics, validated the metrics, and published the metrics. So giving you a sense kind of where we did with that. The first role is that bringing community college professionals from across the country to have broad conversations of what makes sense for measuring community college. What are the right metrics? How do we define those? So once we did that, we said, well, let's develop a set of metrics that make sense for community colleges. And a lot of the conversation drove around what are the pros and cons for doing different things. For example, should we do a 4-year time zone, an 8-year time zone? What was decided on was a 6-year time frame for the 6-year outcome metrics for a variety of reasons. It was enough time for many of our students to complete, but it was not so long that it became less policy relevant. So we're balancing the values of the policy relevancy of these metrics, as well as the value to the colleges for those metrics. So once we went through and made the decision on what to create, what to collect, we decided, well, what's the next step in this? The metrics in and of themselves were the initial goal of the VFA. We also said, well, maybe it makes sense to create a system for collecting and displaying those data and sharing those data publicly as well as privately within the institutions. So at that point, the decision then turned to making a system for collecting and displaying those data. And that's really the sense of what we did for launching those data analysis tools, data collection systems, and all of those important tools that colleges use on a regular who participate in the VFA. Those have evolved over time. We continue to improve them over time. But ultimately, the goal was to initially create the metrics, and then secondarily was creating the method for collecting and displaying those. When we first did the VFA, we weren't sure we were going to actually create the collection and display tools, but we decided, based on feedback of people, that it was important for us to do that. So that's where we ended up with the data collection and analysis tools. Over time, we did a lot of work to try and figure out what's the best way for collecting these data and best way for displaying these data. We went to a method where we did student level reporting into the institute, into the VFA, because it made it easier for the colleges to submit their data. They could pull the data from their extract from their colleges, get the student level data, import it into the VFA, and then we do the calculations for them. That gave the benefit of all the colleges having their data calculated in the same way consistently, but also reduced the burden for them having to calculate those metrics on their own and make sure they did the analysis correct. And so the data submission process became relatively easier. And that's really what we did when we first launched the site. We went from colleges calculating, submitting their own data to the approach where they could actually use the student level data and do that. One of the things that AACC decided to do was not keep the student level data at AACC because of the challenges with personally identifiable information and keeping student level data at AACC. We chose to go the route of keeping the data collecting the data from student level, aggregating that data, then getting rid of that student level data. So in the VFA metrics and measures that we have, those are all based on aggregate data and aggregate metrics, not keeping the student level data with us. So over the years, we've done a lot of work with the VFA, and as mentioned, we created the data collection tools and the metrics. But one of the things we've done is we've sat back and says, well, we've done this. We've done a lot of really good things with the data. We've used them for national advocacy. We promote them for community colleges, and they're really becoming more and more broadly accepted as the valuable metrics for using for looking at community colleges. In fact, we brought in the data from the guided pathways, key performance indicators into the VFA because we wanted to make sure and see what's going. Uh-oh. My slides are not advancing, I think. Hang on. Are they advancing now? No.
No, I'm not seeing them change.
Okay, hang on. Let me try something. There. Are you seeing them now?
It looks
Now
like
we can see the presenter view, so we can see your next slide.
Okay. Oh, just a presenter view though.
Yeah, with your notes and everything.
Sorry about this, people. How's that?
there you go.
Okay. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties here. So what I wanted to talk about now is really the background of where we got to this decision and what we're doing now. We're very proud of what we've done with the VFA, and we're able to collect a lot of great information and valuable information for that. But first and foremost, AACC as an organization is an advocacy organization. But we also work very hard to ensure that we have our members tools and opportunities that will continue to advance the nation's community colleges. The VFA has been a very important part of that, and ACC is proud of those accomplishments and the changes the VFA has been able to produce. It was conceptualized in 2008, began in 2009. Online tools were rolled out in 2013. And as I mentioned before, there's two important parts when we first developed it was the metrics and the reporting tools. As a national convener of community college, we were able to develop the VFA metrics that truly represent community colleges that are or for community colleges and by community colleges. However, technology solutions and data warehousing is not a strength of AACC. We are proud of the underlying technology we developed for the VFA to upload and analyze VFA data, but there's real challenges with the processes and procedures we do have. AACC collection is minimal PII. However, that is still a potential liability when we collect that student level data from the institutions. Technology costs continue to increase. AACC does not have a lot of in-house technical knowledge and expertise on technology. Participation levels have fluctuated over time, declining during COVID. And then different national initiatives use separate data for looking at these outcomes. For example, Achieving the Dream uses a post-secondary data partnership. Therefore, AACC decided we needed to transition away from being the collector and displayer of the VFA data to work with an outside organization that has much more experience working with student level data and displaying institutional dashboards of student progress and outcomes. And that's how we came to the decision to move forward with a new partnership with the Postsecondary Data Partnership. We looked at what they have, what they could do, and we decided, well, it makes sense to have an organization that already has substantial ability and experience doing these sorts of work to do these work. So what are some of the advantages of transitioning to this? As I mentioned before, they have the experience, resources, and capacities for dealing with PII and large data sets. It actually is more inclusive data than the VFA alone. VFA had to make some decisions for purposes of minimizing data input of what we collected. As a result, we focus on the fall cohort only. There will be more participating institutions for benchmarking. And there's more data elements beyond just the VFA that will be available within the post-secondary data partnership. Another advantage is it's actually full year data, not just fall data. And that gives you more ability to look at different types of students you might not otherwise have looked at. What the other advantage of this is we can devote our resources to metric advocacy and development and not on maintaining the technology infrastructure. So we offload that technology work to the experts at National Student Clearinghouse. So you may be wondering what's going to happen with the historical data that you have in the VFA. We have and will continue to keep the complete historical data of all the colleges who participated in the VFA up through 2024. What we're doing is making an Excel file for all colleges who participated that includes all the data, aggregates, cohorts, disaggregations available to them that we'll be sharing with every college who wants to use that and look at that. You'll be able to use that to create some simple pivot tables to analyze any of your past data going forward. In addition, we've taken the last 6 years of VFA data and created benchmark tables, as you see here on the right, of all those cohorts, disaggregations, and cohort types. And so you'll be able to benchmark against any of your data with these data as well. Unfortunately, because of the nature of the historical data, which was student level data, it cannot be imported into the PDP. So that's one of the shortcomings of this transition is that historical data cannot be brought into the PDP. So going forward, all data will have to be based on new submissions of the data. One thing we are looking at doing is releasing a report this summer that will include all of the data from the last 6 years, and look at the trends of those data and giving the colleges an insight into what happened with those. We're doing a preview of that data actually at the AACC annual session we'll be doing in conjunction with PDP there as well. So what data are going to be available in the PDP? So right now, the National Student Clearinghouse is working on a 6-year outcomes dashboard that'll mirror what was seen in the VFA. That will be released later this year, so colleges who are participating will be able to see their 6-year outcomes in the same disaggregations as we have now, to the extent that's the disaggregations are in there. Right now, all of the KPIs, the early pathways, KPIs, can be calculated using analysis ready file. And Mandy's going to go in a little bit detail about the dashboards versus the analysis ready files in her presentation, as well as Rachel. But what you'll see with those is those data will be available in analysis ready files. Several of the 2-year progress metrics will be in existing dashboards, and all of them will be able to be calculated using the analysis ready files. The developmental education progress metrics, some of them will be available in the dashboards and analysis ready files, but there'll be some limitations on that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. So in the cohorts, you'll be able to look at your main cohort as you historically have, as well as the first time in college in the dashboards and analysis ready files. The credential seeking cohort, we can define a credential seeking cohort, but it'll have a different definition that was used for VFA because of the way they collect data and use data. The disaggregations available will include the full-time and part-time, race, ethnicity, gender, and college-ready disaggregations. The Pell Grant will be different than the definition we have, as it currently only exists for those students who have Pell their first term enrolled. We're looking at exploring and expanding that in the future, but that can't be done at this time. Age is different breakdown than we have in the VFA in the PDP. That can be replicated using the analysis ready files because it has student level data and age on it, but it currently is not in the filters in the PDP dashboards. What won't be in the VFA currently are the career technical education measures and adult basic education measures. We are looking at those measures, and we've had those in the VFA for a while, but we think there's real value in stepping back now that we're making this transition to say, what are the right metrics for CTE? What are the right metrics for adult basic education? And have some conversation with the field about what makes sense for doing with these going forward. So that's what we're thinking with that going forward. Develop a course attempt based on referral. One of the things that we do in the VFA is define based on referral or based on course taking. That differentiation is not in the PDP right now, so they have a slightly different definition of what developmental readiness is. They don't collect developmental reading as a separate developmental course area. The other piece is for developing the college success in the field of study. What they do in the PDP is collect a gateway course for math and English, which can be used as a proxy for that. But there are a lot of other students who take college level English or math that aren't those. So those can be calculated using the analysis ready files, but you need to know what your college level English and math courses are in there. But that can be done. So it's slightly different, but the big difference is the developmental course based on referral is different than that's defined in the VFA. So there are some metrics that are very similar, but they are a little bit different. So I know some people are asking about getting the data file. We're going to be creating a website that has links to requesting those data files going forward. And so we will go forward with that. Oops, sorry. So I'm going to stop right there. I'll answer a couple of these questions first before I turn it over to Mandy. Some of these may be probably for her as well, but we can do that. Will these slides be shared to those who registered? We're going to make a recording this webinar, and we'll make this available going forward. And we'll have that link available to everybody to look at that. It'll take us a little time to process the data, and we can get there. Is PDP expanded to their definition of first-time student and credential-seeking student to match VFAs? The first-time student basically parallels what we have for the VFA. The credential-seeking student, the challenge there is that AACC calculates credits brought into the institution from outside or entities for defining credential seeking. And so we have to have a conversation with the field about what makes sense to do with that. So at this point, I'm going to turn over to Mandy to kind of give an overview of what the PDP is and walk you through some of those aspects of the PDP. So again, for those who aren't familiar, so we can get a better sense of what it is.
Sorry, I just lost my screen. I was looking for it. Are you able to see my slides okay?
Yes.
Perfect. I apologize. I sound a little bit hoarse. I've been getting over a cold this week, but feeling better, just not sounding better. All right, so I kind of wanted to go over just an overview of what the post-secondary data partnership is. I know that some institutions have heard of the PDP before, some have maybe used the PDP before, and some institutions are coming into this completely fresh and have no idea. So just to give everyone kind of an overview of what the PDP is and what you can potentially expect utilizing the PDP. So really, why join the post-secondary data partnership? We recognize that all institutions have a choice regarding how they want to submit information for reporting purposes. And we appreciate that, and we want to make a compelling argument. I think Kent did a really good job, but the PDP does have tremendous benefits to institutions when it comes to being able to upload information and get information back about your students and your campus. So some of the reasons the PDP really does empower institutions. It allows you to know your data, analyze your data, which gives you the opportunity to spend more time with your data. The PDP really, one of the things that we do want institutions is we want to give back your data to allow you the opportunity to dig deeper into what is going on campus. Are the initiatives that you've put in place working so that you can see trend lines with your data and know what is going on and is it working and is it being effective? What are some things that maybe you do need to adjust? And then also the opportunity to share your data as well. Not only share your data internally with campus users, but externally as well with partner organizations. So additionally, all students, all terms. What does that mean? With the PDP, unlike IPEDS, we take in students who are full-time, part-time. They don't necessarily have to be a fall starter. We have fall starters, spring, summer, if you have a winter term. So we really are taking in all students at all terms so that you have a much wider data set that you're able to look at on your with your campus data. Additionally, we have the transfer data and outcomes that measure success across colleges by showing that additional transfer activity. So showing where your students are transferring, how long are they taking at other institutions to get degrees. The PDP offers course level student data. So there is a lot of data that is included in the PDP. This includes modality of your course. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. But modality, how, and this is very important, especially following COVID, because previously I think that, institutionally, we really thought of our campus, on-campus students versus off-campus, but we also have hybrid courses and things like that. So being able to determine the efficacy of the modality, as well as, our certain institutions, professors, what course levels are making a difference there as well. So frequent updates. This is not just submitting data one time a year. We have what we call effective dates, but we really encourage institutions to submit their data at the end of an academic term, if that makes sense for your institution. And our turnaround time is within 30 days to get your data back to you on your dashboards and your AR files. So you're getting this data back to you much quicker, and it's much more reliable and timely. Again, we have our analysis ready files. So not only do we have the dashboards and the visualizations, but we do have the analysis ready files, which bring the data back to you so that you can analyze this. And we'll talk more about that here in just a second. This allows you to merge other data sets. So not just utilizing our information, but utilizing your student information system and other data sets as well. Again, democratizing your data access. So this is allowing many institutional users across campus to have access to this data. One of the powers of the PDP is being able to allow other users access to the dashboards. We really want to unload the burden on the IR department, and granted, that very first initial upload it is a little bit timely, but after that, it becomes a process. And it really helps to allow other campus users to have access to the data without having to go back to their IR department and continuously ask for reporting. And then also the benchmarking outcomes, being able to compare across colleges. We have, as Kent mentioned, a large data set, and that does allow institutions to be able to benchmark themselves across different classifications, whether you're a 2-year or 4-year institution or public private. So being able to benchmark where it makes sense to benchmark for you as an institution. I actually live in a very rural state, and benchmarking for institutions is always a challenge because rural in Wyoming is not the same as rural in Kentucky. And so being able to benchmark where it makes sense is also one of the powers of the PDP. And I'm not sure, Rachel, if you had anything, I'm happy to. So again, the inclusivity of the PDP, I just really like this visual because it does demonstrate, if you look at a 2018 starting cohort of students for IPEDS versus a 2018 cohort for the PDP, some of the differences you're going to see simply because of the inclusivity of the PDP and the cohorts that we are taking in versus IPEDS data. And thankfully, Achieving the Dream, this is from one of their presentations, and they've allowed us to use this. So thanks to them. So how does the PDP work? The institution, as Kent mentioned, we have a cohort file, and that cohort file establishes who your students are. And then we have the course file, and the course file is establishing, the student level course data. We take those two files that the institution submits to us, and then we combine with our enrollment data as well as our degree verify data. Once we have combined all of those data sets, we're able to provide institutions back with two separate outputs. We have our analysis ready files, and then we have the dashboards. And the dashboards have multiple visualizations, while as the analysis ready files are files that allow you to dig in and analyze your data as well further with more data than is available on the dashboards. And then finally, this allows institutions, like I've said, the opportunity to share that data amongst other campus users, but also share with other parties such as the AACC. So institutions own their data, and they have the opportunity to share their data with institutions. Third parties like AACC get de-identified data. So while the institution is getting that identified analysis ready file, they're able to share a de-identified analysis ready file with their third party organization, as well as the ability to see the dashboards. So that's also one of the nice things about the PDP. And I know that the AACC is really looking at some interesting things to be able to do with the analysis ready files. So being able to share that with them would be a value add to the institutions as well.
And Mandy, to look at that, we're looking at one of the things that we're hoping to be able to do with this is, as colleges participate in the PDP, that they'll share the analysis ready files with AACC, that we can use those to do some further analysis of the data and provide more national sort of look at what's happening in our colleges. But in addition to that, I've been looking at that data to see if we can create a student level output file that really will have all the VFA metrics that we can measure in them in one file. So you can use that as analysis file as well. So it'll be the analysis ready files we get from the PDP are somewhat different in nature because they're designed for all of the PDP participants. We're looking at creating a new set of files that will be specific for the VFA.
Perfect. So just a little overview of what are the differences between the two. The dashboards are aggregate level, so there is no PII on the dashboards. You're able to filter using filters and dimensions the data that's on the dashboards. There are in total 16 different dashboards, not 11 are KPI focused, but then 5 of those are also benchmarking. and we'll look at that a little bit further, as well as our financial aid dashboard. Um, and this, again, is the access is democratized. So this is information that can be shared amongst multiple users on campus. Um, the analysis ready files are different, but so rich in data that one thing we often see is that a lot of people are drawn to the visualizations, but we really don't want users to overlook the AR files because the AR files are so rich in a data set that is incredibly valuable information to a campus. So this is the course level student data. Like I said, some of that data includes program of study term by term. That's actually a new addition that we've added to our AR files. And it includes a lot of data elements that you simply don't see in the dashboards. I'm not sure, Rachel, if you wanted to add anything about the AR files or the dashboards.
Yeah, I would just add, in addition to the work that Kent is doing around, VFA metrics with the analysis ready file, Research Ed has in development of a suite of tools to help you get started using your analysis ready file that we can share in later webinars and trainings that we'll be hosting. So we know that sometimes, as Mandy said, the dashboards can be like a great point of entry to kind of start looking at your visuals. And so we have created a couple of tools to kind of ease the transition into starting to do some analysis with those AR files. So we'll talk about those a little bit today, but more in subsequent conversations. I also just wanted to pause. I see there's a good number of questions. So Kent and Mandy, I don't know if we want to take some of those now or wait until later on.
So I've been trying to respond to some of the questions in the Q&A. I encourage the people who are participating to look at the Q&A for some of those questions and answers to see if they're there already. I think there is one that may be worth repeating about the cost for participants going forward. AACC has negotiated rate with National Student Clearinghouse that any 2024 VFA participant can participate for the 2025 collection year at a flat rate of $2,000, which is basically the rate the VFA was for the prior year. After that, the rate will go back to a standard PDP pricing, but for the first year, it is the same cost as using the VFA has been. And I know and Manny kind of went over this a little bit, but the PDP participants who are currently doing PDP, there's no additional work for those colleges if they're participating in the PDP. It's just that we're working on getting VFA metrics and measures and processes in place for them to look at their data and those VFA metrics in there. Mandy, do you want to talk now or later about the dual enrollment students?
Well, and I saw Rachel was typing an answer out,
Oh,
so I
okay.
wasn't.
You can, yeah, go ahead. I just was answering that one, and then there was another question about the student tracker. So just wanted to voice over that as well, that the student tracker data is completely different from the PDP. So if you're participating and receiving student tracker data, that will continue. The PDP is a separate product initiative. So this is kind of in addition to.
And it's my understanding that the college participate includes access for anybody at the college, not just per person use access for the data. Correct, Mandy?
Exactly. I know that, some of the other NSC products, it's per person, and that's not the case with the PDP. So it is the fee, and then you have a user administrator on your campus, and your user administrator is then able to share access with other users on campus. And then the PDP, we currently are not, this is something that is high on our priority list of dual enrollment students and creating a metric to really capture this information well. We currently do not have a way to capture that information well, and it's something that we're looking into and working to build out. There is, when you are submitting your data, you are able to flag that a student is a dual enrollment student. They're not, however, going to to show on your dashboards if they are dual enrolled. It will show previously dual enrolled, however.
And I think let me make a clarifying point that might help some of these questions that are coming out. The VFA is basically using the PDP as a tool. So if you're participating in the VFA in the PDP, you're participating in the PDP. And so it's not separate, but anybody who participates in the PDP, there is no additional cost for the VFA metrics or measures. There is no separate reporting requirements for the PDP versus VFA PDP versus the PDP. We're basically using what the PDP is collecting and working with that to create the metrics within the PDP. So the college can use the PDP submissions to give VFA information and metrics. And that is the approach we're taking with this. And as for the system solution, that's something that, we can talk to going forward. As for taking advantage of 2000 rate, we have a list of who participated. Both Mandy and Rachel have that. And if you want to go sign up, they'll know who you are and it won't be a problem. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mandy or Rachel.
Okay, so I wanted to give a brief look at what the dashboards look like. So when you log in, once you've submitted your data and your dashboards are live and available, this is what the page looks like that you log in and you see. So you're able to see these are our institutional dashboards that are available. These ones that are highlighted in green are also benchmarking dashboards as well. So you can see over here, we have our institutional dashboards, we have our benchmarking dashboards. Institutionally, these are all of the dashboards that are available within the PDP. There will be an additional dashboard added in June, and we'll talk about that here shortly. So you can see that they're broken out to those early momentum metrics, those outcomes over time as well. And again, the benchmarking dashboards are the credit accumulation rate, the credit completion ratio, persistence, retention, transfers, and outcome measures. So those are the dashboards that are available for the benchmarking as well. When you log into each of the dashboards, this is the information that shows you how you're able to disaggregate your data. So there are a number of dimensions and filters that allow you to really disaggregate. So if you want to look at the credit completion ratio for your female Pell Grant recipients who are full-time students, you're able to disaggregate and look at that. Especially, this is helpful for many programs on campus. I know that I previously, as a TRIO Student Support Services Program Manager, would have died to have information like this. It really helps, with grant reporting. It helps with programmatic information for those TRIO Student Support Services. And that's just one instance of how this information can be disaggregated and used by one department on campus. And then this is what the benchmarking dashboard looks like. Again, up here at the top is how you disaggregate your data, but then these are the filters that you're able to benchmark your data. So by state, Carnegie classification, historically Black colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institutions, 2 year or 4 years, public or private. You're able to filter and add over institutions. It is important to note that you must select 5 institutions to benchmark against. And essentially, that is in order to, small towns, who knows, just in order to protect data and privacy of other institutions as well. So this is the other dashboard that I was mentioning. So this was created for this specific VFA to PDP transition. So this is the 6-year outcomes dashboard that will be rolled into production in June of this year. We really wanted to keep the look and feel very similar of what VFA users are used to. And 6-year outcomes was not something that previously the PDP was tracking. And knowing how important that is to community colleges, this was one of the first things that we decided would be a tremendous add to our VFA users. So the 6-year outcomes dashboard will be added and in production June of this year. So that will be available for VFA users who are submitting data. And this, one of the hardest dashboards to build and disaggregate is by race and ethnicity. And so this is showing you what that is going to look like when you're able to log in and use this. So how to participate? I know that many of these questions were in the chat, and I just kind of wanted to give an overview of how our institutions going to participate. So the initial agreements with the National Student Clearinghouse, there are a number of institutions that already participate, and that's great. Your journey looks a little bit different because you've already been onboarded to the PDP. For those institutions that have not already joined the PDP, we have our initial what we call statement of work. So that's our contract with the National Student Clearinghouse and the institution. Once we have that statement of work signed and completed, we also have what we call a setup form, an implementation form. This allows us the information we need to set up your account within the National Student Clearinghouse. Again, the VFA pricing for the first year is $2,000, like Kent mentioned. Once an institution has already completed their statement of work, they've completed their setup form, they have a kickoff call with our implementations team just to let them know what the process is to implement to the PDP. Additionally, this is where Rachel really comes in and shines, and she's a great value add, and we're so thankful to have the research ed team come and help institutions as well, because they're really able to help institutions with that data file submission. So I don't know, Rachel, if you want to talk about that or.
Yeah, I have a couple of slides actually that I'll do once
Perfect.
you wrap this up to get into more detail on what our submission support looks like.
Perfect. So once you have your data file submission, like I mentioned previously, within 30 days, the PDP team turns that around once you've cleared all of your data quality checks and all of that. Once you've done all of that, 30 days, you have your dashboards, you have your AR files, and then we really like to utilize research ed as well as PDP account managers to give you an orientation to how do you use the dashboards, because showing it is a different than utilizing it. So we like to do an orientation to those. And then briefly, I just want to go over managing your account. As I mentioned, you are the owner of your data. You determine who are the users on your campus, who are going to access your data, who are the third parties. This is the process, though. You have a sharing data with third parties. And it's a pretty simple process. If you are already a part of the PDP, which I think there are a number of users who are, you can do this right now. You log into your secure portal, you go to Control Access Data, and you are able to go to this PDP third-party authorization. And you can search for the third party that you want to share your information for. So for example, American Association of Community Colleges. And then you are able to determine, do you only want them to see your dashboards? Do you want them to see your de-identified AR files, financial aid dashboards, and add third party? So again, you are in control of that. It's available to you if you're already a part of the PDP. And if you're not, once you become a part of the PDP, it's a pretty simple and quick process. So. And then our knowledge base. Our knowledge base is a wonderful tool and resource for when you're going through the submission process or even beforehand. This is going to give you a lot of information about the PDP, how to submit files. We have tutorials, we have step-by-step instructions. So I highly encourage anyone to also check out our PDP knowledge base. So I'm going to turn it over to Rachel really quick so that she can answer some of our other questions.
Yeah, I think I know that you both talked a little bit about the pricing, but I just want to see there has been a lot of additional questions in the chat about pricing and how things will be determined after the first year, how institutions can get in touch if they want to make sure they're getting that discount. So I don't know if you just want to quickly speak to that one more time, Kent, before I get started.
Sure. So any college who reaches out to the clearinghouse and or Rachel and her team at Research Ed, we have a list of those colleges who participated in the past, and we'll be able to make sure that that pricing is applied to those institutions. Going forward, if you go to the Post-Secondary Data Partnership website, you'll find information on there, and one of the links down there includes pricing for institutions going forward, and it's really based on a per FTE basis, and it ranges, at least the current pricing ranges from I think 26.95 for institutions with less than 4,000 FTE to 39.55 for institutions with 10,000 or more. The pricing is a little bit different for institution or for systems, state systems, and there are, I believe, for statewide systems, there's a discount as well for that. But the colleges in systems can participate and have access to the colleges, assuming that there are agreements in place for those systems and colleges. Correct, Mandy?
Right. I was going to link the pricing, however, I'm not able to share it in the webinar chat.
Um, the question was raised, and it's a good question, and we haven't come across this yet, but for those colleges who signed up for this year at a higher rate, what can they get the $2,000 rate? We'll have to get back with you an answer on that one. Because I don't know that we have the answer for that one right now. I don't want to misspeak and give you incorrect guidance.
All right.
And
Well, I think
Rachel, as part of your
go ahead.
conversation, you may want to talk about the estimated average time it takes for colleges to do this. I don't know if you can speak to that piece of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it varies pretty widely, but I'll do my best to give you all some estimates on that. I think it really does depend on, I think the size of your team that's working on this, the student information system that you're working with, how things are structured on your campus. So one thing that we typically talk about in our onboarding conversations and data submission trainings that we do is thinking about forming a cross-functional team, what that looks like and where you can start to pull your data elements from. And so it's really hard for me to give a concrete number of, how much time I would say to put aside, because it really depends on how your data is structured and organized on campus, how many people you have that need to be involved in this process. We work with some institutions that have, one person in their institutional research and effectiveness office, and they do this on their own. And that works great because they have, everything they need at their fingertips, right? And it's really smooth to put these files together. We've worked with campuses that, for example, have, IR and IE doing a component of it, IT doing a component of it, registrar doing a component of it, right? So it really depends on, again, your staffing levels and how your data is structured. And that is something that we can talk about in more detail during one of our data submission webinar trainings that we offer. So I'll talk about those in just a second. But this is just the Research Ed team. So our colleague Ayana is also on the call today. Her and I will be the folks that you see the most working with you all. And just wanted to, put this little slide up, show you who we are. Our services and our supports are available to everyone participating, making the transition from VFA to PDP free of cost. So just wanted to highlight that. A little bit just about who we are as an organization. So Research Ed is a nonprofit education policy research nonprofit. We are based in Washington, D.C., but we work nationally. Our work is really student-centered and focused on and informed by the experiences of today's students and learners. We have been supporting the Post-Secondary Data Partnership all the way back to 2020. Prior to 2020, I was actually employed at the National Student Clearinghouse working on the PDP, and everyone on our team has experience working on this submission for a long time. So we're really here to, encourage you all to leverage and access our expertise and support. We are here to help. I think for some institutions, especially transitioning from the way that the VFA data was submitted, this can be, feel a little bit unwieldy and different at the start, but we are here to help facilitate the process and work with you all to make this as easy as possible. So I want to just get kind of a little bit more granular about the types of support we provide. We work really closely with Mandy to make sure that this is seamless and you can get your data through easily. But just wanted to make that a little bit clear what types of things you can come to us for. We support with the paperwork and kickoff. Of course, most of that is really on the clearinghouse's end. But we are happy to answer any questions that you might have around data privacy concerns or, campus-based coordination. We know that to get some of the paperwork across the finish line, the folks that might need to do signatures or be responsible for that are not always the same people that are doing the data submission. So we know there's some coordination needed there, as well as coordination with AACC and the clearinghouse. So I would say our role is a little bit more limited here, but we do try to track and just manage and make sure everything's on track. We know that you all have so many important things you're working on, and figuring out if all the necessary paperwork has been signed or not is not necessarily top of mind, right? So we are here to make sure that all of that kind of flows through smoothly. With that said, we know that as some campuses work through SOWs and MOUs and data sharing agreements, that can sometimes be a little bit of a lengthy process as you get all the signatures needed. We are available to support with kind of the next stage in the process, this data file creation, even if that paperwork's not done yet. So as long as you are certain that this is something you're going to be participating in, right? But there might be a scenario in which you're waiting for that one person sign off, right? And you don't have that yet, someone's out, or you're just waiting to get the final, kind of I's dotted, T's crossed, need to make sure legal signs off. In the meantime, we are happy to help get you started working on your data file creation. Of course, until all of the paperwork is signed, the clearinghouse will not be able to assign you a login to actually submit those files. But we think there's a real benefit in getting started as early as possible, working on those data files on your local machine until the time in which your submission portal and axes are all set up. So data file creation is kind of the next step in the process. This is where we do a lot of really hands-on work. Data sources sometimes come from multiple places on campus. We want to help facilitate any conversations that you need to have about data definitions. So things to Ken's point earlier, right? Things will look a little bit different from the VFA. Things certainly look different from Student Tracker or iPads. And so we want to help make sure that you all are having the conversations you need to have around how you want to define things. I think one of the great things about the post-secondary data partnership is that they do try to make some of the definitions as flexible as possible. So a lot of times when we have these kind of facilitated conversations between your teams and research ed, the answer to, how do we submit this data? How do we define this is it's up to you, right? But it's up to you means however you submit the data is going to impact how it looks on the back, like on the kind of product end, right? When you receive your dashboards and files. And so we're here to help you think through kind of those implications. If we submit our gateway data in this way, if we define the gateway in this way on campus, how is that going to make our files look? Is that going to work out in a way that's going to be useful for us for analysis? And so that's something that we're here to support. What that looks like in practice is we hold weekly group office hours. So I'll be sharing the schedule and information in just a minute. We're also available for one-on-one calls. So our office hours are every Thursday, 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Those are drop in, drop out, just like, kind of a college office hour might be with a professor. You're welcome to come by, ask your question, hang out, hear what others are asking, or drop in, ask something quickly and leave and, go do something else. We are there every week and available to support. We also have support from the clearinghouse. So Mandy and the other account managers at NSC do drop in to support so that we can do some real-time problem solving if you have issues with, account logins or things like that. So those are a really great opportunity to engage with us. But we recognize that sometimes, you might have questions that feel a little bit sensitive. You don't want to share in a group setting, or you're like, wow, this really is going to require a cross-functional team. We need 3 or 4 people. We need like a full dedicated hour of your time just for our campus. And so we are always happy to set up one-on-one calls with your team. You just need to shoot myself or Ayana an email, and we will get back to you and coordinate with you all to find some time. In addition to this, we also have a webinar series that we do and custom trainings. So we have webinars that I'll share on the next slide every month, so that, if the timing doesn't work out or you're not quite ready to get started on a certain component, you don't have to worry about training being, kind of too advanced or not advanced enough for where you are on the process. We offer things on a regular and recurring basis. You can kind of jump into the cycle at a time that works for you and where you're at in the process. And then as we go and everyone kind of gets their data submitted and is farther along in the process, we'll be coordinating with AACC to come up both with AACC and in combination, of course, most importantly with your feedback on things that might be beneficial as you really dive deeper into the PDP. So we've done for other organizations that we support some customized trainings looking specifically at the outcomes dashboard and thinking about, how institutions want to use the insights that you can gain from the outcomes dashboards to support your initiatives on campus, to think about your goals and things like that. We also do some specialized trainings around the tools that I mentioned earlier to get you leveraging that analysis ready file data. So those are much smaller groups. We offer those, schedule those with small groups of institutions, customized based on your needs and interest as it relates to PDP data analysis. And those are completely interactive. We prefer to do those once you have access to your own data files so that we can really get hands-on together in working through this. The next thing that we support, and of course, we're always available, if you have just like a quick question and you don't feel the need for an entire meeting, we're happy to answer questions via email as well. The next piece, and I have this very intentionally separated out from data file creation to data submission and quality checks. So with a lot of institutions, and I think Mandy probably has a similar experience, a lot of institutions kind of go through this and they're like, great, we submitted our data, we're done, right? Which is sort of the case, right? But we need to make sure that the data quality checks and verifications all go through. And so even if your data is in absolutely perfect shape, you've done everything right, the clearinghouse still does some checks that look at kind of distributions, right? And so every institution is a little bit different. So it's very possible that your data is correct and accurate for your campus, but it might look different than what the clearinghouse expects, right? Maybe you define something in a different way. And so they have some kind of expected parameters and distributions as part of their validation process. So regardless of the quality of your data, I do encourage everyone to go in and check your files. You should receive kind of automated updates as it's processed so that you can go in and see. And if you do have something that is either an error or just something that falls outside of kind of the anticipated distribution, you can go in through that process, communicate with the clearinghouse and, either submit an override or submit some updated files as needed. So this is really, I think, another portion of support where we work really closely with institutions. This can be one of kind of the meatiest portions of all of this. And so we work with you all to troubleshoot and figure out how to get from submission to that like final certification where, you've signed off and said everything in this looks right. The clearinghouse has signed off and said everything looks right. And they actually begin processing your data. And so again, we do that through those one-on-one calls, individualized support. We also hold biweekly sync meetings with the clearinghouse and AACC so that all of us are in the loop and coordinating and on the same page about where you all are and what kind of supports you might need. So that, if you're talking to Kent about something, and Mandy and I aren't on the email, or, it comes up when you see him in person at an event, Mandy and I can also get on the same page and say, oh, actually, you know what, we saw their file come through. Let's see what's going on there. And then we're also always happy to help facilitate connections with other support partners. So the Postsecondary Data Partnership has been a fantastic initiative and growing for a long time. There are lots of other organizations that have also jumped in to help make this process easier and promote adoption and usage of the PDP. So I know Achieving the Dream has some really fantastic online training resources. I think they also are really interested in finding ways to offer more tailored supports for those of you that are making this transition from VFA to PDP. And AIR also has free online trainings available. And then the last two parts are really my favorite part of this process. So once you've gotten your data in, certified, all of the things, it's processed by the clearinghouse, it comes back to you. We're here to support with analysis as well. So, once you've gone through this process and you have your data back, we want to make sure that it's useful to you. We want to make sure that it's something that you can adopt on campus to make data-informed decisions, to think about how you can better support your students with this information. So again, we'll host kind of some of those more interactive small group webinars customized based on your interests. Again, happy to have those kind of one-off individual conversations, look through your data. We also do a level of analysis on our end at Research Ed once all of your dashboards are available. We have access to your dashboards as well through our partnership with AACC, but again, very high level aggregated data, no PII. And we have access to those just to go in and be able to check and make sure everything looks right. So that, if through our support for you all, you say, well, hey, our 2018 cohort looks funny, what's going on there, right? We can be looking at the same thing and troubleshooting with you all in real time to figure out, was it a coding error? Was a certain data element not uploaded? Or is it actually correct? And it's just a matter of getting adjusted to how the PDP calculates things. And so that's some of the support we provide there. We also will be sharing toolkits, again, other resources that can help you simplify your data analysis, and thinking about kind of strategic use of the PDP. So I will share this with everyone via email. You should have access to this, but this is just our calendar of supports. So as I mentioned, we have office hours every week, Thursdays 3:30 to 4:30. I know that the Clearinghouse has recently also started offering office hours. Those are Wednesdays, Mandy, 3:30 to 4:30?
Wednesdays from 3 to 4.
3 to 4. Awesome. As I mentioned before, we also have monthly webinars and data trainings. So every single month we have our kind of baseline data submission webinar. That's the second Wednesday of every month from 1 to 2 Eastern. So again, if you're not quite ready for it yet, or one of the timings doesn't work out for you, you can always join another one. We just had our kickoff one today. So we'll be holding another one next month on the second Wednesday. And then on alternate months, we have dashboard webinars and analysis ready file webinars. So every other month, it's one or the other. Those are I would say, the best audience for those are folks who already have access to the data, but we certainly don't want to prevent anyone from coming. And I think it can be really beneficial for those of you that are trying to kind of wrap your head around what this will all look like, and really want to get a more kind of visual, hands-on, concrete approach to all of this. It can be useful even if you haven't submitted your data yet, or you've submitted it but haven't gotten your files back yet. It can be a good kind of intro to just getting a sense of what's available in the dashboards. How do they look? How do they work? Similarly for the analysis ready file. And so we've seen some institutions that see value in these webinars before they have their own data, and then they'll actually come back and join again once they have their data and get something totally different out of it. So that's why we offer these on a recurring basis. And I think that's all I had. So I have our contact information here. I'll also drop it in the chat. And really excited to work with you all.
So I know we're a little bit over time. I want to wrap things up, but first I want to basically say we know this is a lot of change. We're asking a lot of change for this. It's a big change, big transition. But we think it's a real exciting opportunity to work with the National Student Clearinghouse to make this happen. And we think it's going to be a really good opportunity to build on what we've built with the VFA and leverage it with more information, get more information out there and more data out there. There's going to be some challenges where things will look a little bit different in the VFA. Numbers going to be a little bit different. Cohorts will make a little bit different. But the bottom line is the metrics, to the extent possible, are going to mirror what are in the VFA. And where there are differences, we'll be sure to make clear what those differences are. We've done a crosswalk of what is in there, what isn't there. And as we go into this, and we're going to probably I'm still working on looking at the analysis ready files versus the dashboards, but as we get more further clarification, we'll make sure that everybody knows what the significant differences are, where they might expect to see minor differences. Some of them will have to do with how the data are reported in, like who's in a cohort and things like that. Most of they should be the same, but they maybe off by 1 or 2 students in some places, or probably, but it'll definitely be less than 1 or 2% for the number of students and all those sorts of areas. And the metrics should be very similar to the extent possible. And if not, we'll make sure people will know. We'll be sending out a link to this webinar to all the people in here, as well as a link to where we're going to start putting more information on this, how to download the files and all those sorts of things. We'll make that available there as well. With that, I want to thank everybody for their time today. Sorry for going a little bit over time, and hopefully you have a great weekend. If anybody's going to Nashville for our convention, I hope to see you there. And if you want to ask me some questions face to face, you can do that. And we'll be having a session at 2:45 on Sunday as well about this. Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.